Hey folks, you know that fall and winter are the best time to plant trees. So today, we're thrilled to talk trees with Ben Gillilan, owner of Grizzly's Hidden Falls Nursery and Landscape in Nolanville. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming. How did you get started with your nursery?
It fell in my lap, really.
Okay.
I started in landscaping when I retired from the Army in August of '03 and did that for quite a few years before they were getting ready to shut down the nursery in our town. I said, we can't have that, so I jumped in with both feet, and
Wow.
It was close to drowning, but we pulled it through, and now it's doing fantastic.
Well, thank you for your service. We always appreciate that. You're in Nolanville.
Yep.
Where exactly is that for those of us who don't know, and what type of soils and what's the environment like there?
Well, Nolanville is about an hour north of us, off of I-35, close to Belton. The soils up there are horrendous, like most of central Texas. Caliche, straight limestone. We get a few fingers of the Blackland prairies up there. So it's hit or miss in how you're planting, but we deal with it.
Okay. What all do you have at your nursery?
We've got all kinds of trees. I mean, from sizes from 5 to 30 to 45 gallon. For plantings, we've got all the natives. We just love our natives, and that's what we specialize in. And then we've got a lot of the herbs, we've got a lot of the veggies, we've got all the annuals that people want to dress things up with, multitude of shrubs, multitude of flowering shrubs. It's a full-service nursery with everything you can dream of.
Okay, and y'all install as well?
Yeah, we do install, we'll do design, we do everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
One-stop shop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so we've mentioned that fall and winter is the best time to plant trees. What would you say specifically those months might be when y'all are looking to get trees in?
Well, I push people to start planting really hard when the trees start going dormant.
Okay.
So we'll start in November. In fact, we do a huge push in November to get folks going because they don't think because their trees are going dormant, they're not pretty. So I push them all through winter and even up into February, March. And then after that, you can still plant, but the best time is the fall and winter periods.
I guess it's good that Arbor Day is around November 7th, right? So
Oh, yeah.
maybe you start to think about if you're going to do, especially larger trees, smaller trees, you might be able to push out a little bit more from the fall and winter, but
Yeah.
larger trees, it just takes a lot more resources to get those established. Yeah, you might want an instant tree, but maybe sometimes it's good to go a little bit smaller because it'll get there.
Oh, it will. And, you know, one of my favorites like that is a cottonwood. People want to start with a big cottonwood. I said, don't.
Yeah,
Start with a 5 gallon or a 15 gallon and watch that thing grow.
right.
You'll be amazed.
Right. Okay. Well, a lot of people think of just shade trees, but not a lot of folks have huge yards. So we're going to go through some of the trees that you've got and some that you feel are really good performers for those who don't have 400 acres to grow a grove on, so to speak. So for color and seasonal plants that really might flower a lot or attract pollinators, what about the Texas redbud or the redbud in general?
Redbuds are amazing. It's my favorite springtime tree. It's one of the first to bloom in the spring. I absolutely love the Mexican redbud.
Yeah.
Doesn't get quite as tall, but it's just, to me, it's even more hardy than Texas redbud.
Right.
So when we push fall color, I don't talk about redbuds. We push spring color, I talk about redbuds.
And that's an understory tree usually too, right? It's,
Yeah, it
it's
can
not
be.
necessarily, I see a lot of folks, or I've seen in the highway, them put it out in the blazing sun, and sometimes they can look a little rough. It's not that they won't survive.
That's true. Yeah, the leaves will yellow. They'll suffer a little bit from the heat.
Yeah.
But they'll do all right. You just got to baby them a little bit. But
Yeah.
understory is amazing with them like that.
Right. Okay, what about the Mexican buckeye? So one of my favorite for a shady area.
They are a fun tree.
Yeah.
If you run across those in the wild and you see it, they're in the woods.
Yeah.
So it's a fun tree to plant. People don't think of them, so I push them on them. A lot of them don't like them because of the seeds. They make a little bit of a mess with the seeds, but it's not that big of a deal.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's doesn't have a long bloom period, but when it does bloom, it's a showstopper.
That's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I've noticed them too on rocky cliff sides as well. Like they're pretty hardy. What about the mountain laurel?
Mountain laurel is a fun tree. You have to be very, very, very patient.
Yes.
I've got one in my backyard that's 12 feet tall, and it's 15 years old.
Wow.
I don't give it any extra love.
Yeah.
I enjoy that tree when it blooms. It's amazing. So this past spring, mine didn't have any blooms. And a lot of people in my area didn't have any blooms on them. I don't know if it's because we had a drier winter or what, but it's a fun tree, a beautiful evergreen tree, but be prepared to
wait.
To wait.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as an 80s kid, I have to say that the blooms smell like the scented grape markers. That might be really weird.
I always called it grape bubble gum. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some shade and larval host plants. We're going to talk about a couple of oaks. I know Doug Ptolemy is a big supporter of oaks because it's a keystone species. What about Chinkapin oaks?
Chinkapin oak is a fun tree. I've got one in my own yard. It's probably 20 feet tall now, and I transplanted it out of somebody else's yard. Didn't want it. It didn't grow fast enough for them. But they didn't care for it enough. I stuck it back there thinking it wouldn't survive, and now I've got it for 10 years in my yard, and it's doing wonderful. So it's got a great growth habit, upright. It'll branch out after several years to start giving some good shade.
Right.
Acorns aren't huge, so they're not that bad. So it's a good tree.
Yeah, and that's in the white oak family, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've noticed the white oaks tend to be, for those people who are worried about oak wilt, that the white oaks tend to be a little bit more resistant if you've got that in the area versus red oaks, which are highly susceptible, and then live oaks. I mean, they can all be affected, but it's a really hardy tree.
Very hardy, very hardy. That's one of the reasons I recommend those.
So what about the Monterey? So that's technically, it's range into Texas, I think it's southern Texas, but it performs great here, right?
Oh yeah, performs wonderful here. The largest one I've seen in somebody's yard was about 40 feet tall.
Okay.
So it's a large tree, but it takes a while to get there, even though they're considered a moderate to fast grower for an oak. And they're semi-evergreen, so that's what people go for.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the what you're calling the cottonless cottonwood? So we were talking about cottonwoods earlier. Tell us about this wonderful tree.
The cottonless cottonwood, it doesn't make a mess, so it's very appealing to folks that don't like all the cotton. I discovered those, didn't discover, but I learned so much about them going to Big Bend.
Right.
We go down there annually, and we camp out in the backwoods, and they grow all over the spring areas.
Yep.
Even when there's nothing visible, these trees have reached down and grabbed hold of that water, and they just thrive in our region.
Right.
And they grow 5 to 6 feet a year.
Yeah, and they get huge. I mean, if they've
Very
got a
nice.
water supply, they can get real tall.
Yeah.
We love to see them, to your point, on springs, or we see them by rivers a lot. They're a really important tree. And I don't know, I like the cotton. I think it's kind of like fall or something.
Yeah.
You know, you get to go around with all the fluff going on. So I don't know, I'm pro cotton. Okay, well, let's talk about some accent plants. These are great for supporters for pollinators as well. What about possum haw?
Possum haw is amazing. It's my favorite one for the wintertime because it's a big showstopper along the sides of the roads, the red or orange berries that they get.
Right.
It draws the wildlife in. So it's one of my favorites, and I push them for folks, but they get afraid of the berries, growing more trees. Don't worry about it. Just give us some life for the wildlife. Yeah.
Well, I would say you don't have to worry about berries that much because inevitably you're going to get cedar waxwings that are going to get highly inebriated on the fermented berries. So they'll take care of that for you.
Yeah,
so.
nonstop.
Okay, what about desert willow? That's a hardy tree.
That is an amazing tree. It will survive with no water whatsoever. They have the wonderful blooms when it's just brutally hot outside and you're just ignoring them. The Bubba is the one that we sell down there, and they're a relatively fast-growing tree. It's a fun tree, a beautiful tree that people it's a willow. No, it's not a willow.
Yeah.
It's just what they call it.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk really quickly about some common issues you see when people are planting trees. So they're really excited, they've got this new tree, and then what are some of the problems you see?
In my experience, it is almost always water.
Okay.
So they'll dig a hole just as big as the root ball.
Right.
And they'll plop the tree in there. And it's going to grow in big circles.
Right.
So it just doesn't work. And we'll come out, we'll diagnose the problem, we'll make adjustments for them. If they plant it themselves, I don't try to unplant it because that could be certain death if they've waited too long. But we'll adjust their watering. If they say they're watering every day and I check it and it's wet an inch down, then they're not watering right every day.
We've said this a number of times on the show, but plant an ugly hole too, to your point about the girdling roots. If you just do a thing that looks beautiful and you plop it in there, those roots are just going to keep circling. Really quickly too, something I've definitely seen is the mulch volcano, the dreaded mulch volcano. Why shouldn't people do that?
It inhibits growth of the tree. It'll cause disease. It's just a horrible way to plant your tree to start with. It will kill your tree eventually.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming and talking about trees.